We are here this afternoon with our present county clerk, Nancy Waters. She's just completing her first four-year term. She's running for re-election as county clerk. Nancy, tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose to run for the county clerk's office initially and why you have decided to seek re-election.
Thank you for this opportunity to be with you today. First of all, I'm Nancy Waters, and I was a county commissioner for 4 years. During that time as county commissioner, I had an opportunity to learn everything there was on all the department budgets and things. And when I kept looking at the county clerk's budget, I always felt that it had a lot more importance than what we were giving it as the County Board of Commissioners. And I felt there were a lot of innovative things that could be done in the county clerk. So I served 4 years as county commissioner, took 2 years off, and then came back 4 years to run for county clerk. During the last 4 years, I've made lots of improvements. We've had lots of things happening. And I think that my slogan is better service for you, experienced leadership for our county. And I think that's what I truly bring, is experienced leadership. Why do I say that? Because the county clerk has 292 statutory requirements. That's a lot of requirement. The county clerk is clerk to the jury board, is clerk to the gun board, is clerk to the county board of commissioners, is clerk to the plat board, is responsible for so many things, and that's what we did as county commissioners. Everything comes to the board. If a department head or an elected official wants to make changes in their office or wants to buy equipment in their office, that comes to the County Board of Commissioners. So I felt I was well qualified, having been a county commissioner. A good example is this county directory, which I think is so valuable. 2 years ago, with all the cuts that we had to make, I had to cut my budget, and there was no money to print this directory. I made a decision that this directory was so important to the public, as well as the other departments and electeds and sheriff and all of them, that I went to the Board of Commissioners and I said, if you would give me authorization to sell $10,000 worth of advertising, I would be responsible for going out, selling that advertising, and printing this. The board did adopt my recommendation and request. I had to go out and sell advertising, but I've never regretted it. Every year we make improvements. This year I've put a map in because I think it's very important that our citizens know where these facilities are. And this was a little more money, but I felt well worth it. I've tried to improve this directory to make it one of the most valuable tools so that it's not only county government per se, but here's the Muskegon County Museum of African American History, where we get a lot of calls in our office wanting to know where's this, where's that. Pioneer Resources, Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership. And I think that had I not been a county commissioner and knew the importance of information to the public, we probably would no longer have this wonderful tool. It includes all of the city, township, village, elected officials, and information. So that's one thing I'm very proud of. Another thing that I'm very proud of is the county clerk is the clerk to the circuit court records office, and that's with the court. And being over there, that's where everybody files. That's where they file for divorces, or they file for civil cases that are over $25,000. But they also file for personal protection orders, and they also file for a situation that if you have a felony and it's been 5 years since you've served your time, that you can apply to have that felony expunged from your record. And we have really worked hard. We are absolutely certain that we're not doing legal work because we're not lawyers, but we do have a sense of giving information to the public. A lot of them aren't able to hire attorneys, and they should be able to get the information simple and straightforward from us in a written form on what they need to do. I'm a person that believes 1,000% in transparency. So much so that when I came into office, I made a strong commitment that for people who weren't able to be at the County of Commission board meeting, on the second and fourth Tuesdays, that I would work hard to see that the minutes were posted online by 8 o'clock that same night, so that you could sit there and read the minutes, know the action that the board had taken. Department heads could see that their motions had been adopted. And I still work very hard with that type of transparency. When situations come up, I'm one that's probably always advocating about Open Meetings Act, that things should be posted. The public should be absolutely encouraged to participate, because we need their involvement, we need their ideas, and they're our citizens. They're who we service. So that's an area I believe very strongly in. One thing I initiated was Full Service Saturday. For those that have jobs or have commitments where they're not able to get out and come to our vitals department, where we have birth certificates and marriage licenses, and we were doing passports, we offered a full service Saturday. Again, as an elected official, you're not able to make these decisions on your own. The County Board of Commissioners own those buildings, and you go to them and you make a request because they want to be sure that you're going to have security and have protection. But that's something that's been well received, and we get a lot of, it's not something that's done every Saturday. We do it in the spring and in the fall, and I'm really pleased for that innovative idea and service that we provide to the citizens. We saw a lot of the people coming into court for circuit court. They couldn't remember the judge, couldn't remember the floor. And we'd have parents coming in because their son was supposed to be in a court and they didn't know which court. So I was very instrumental in getting monitors on the floors of 4, 5, and 6. Again, 4th floor because we have 2 judges there, in Judge Marietti and Judge Ruck, and in the 5th floor where we have probate court with Judge Pittman and Judge Mullally, and then 6th floor where we have 2 circuit court judges with Judge Hicks and with Judge Graves. The importance of that is, I believe we're helpful now in getting people into the right courtroom on time so that courts can start and they won't be charged with being late getting into the courtroom. So that was a new innovative thing that I was able to do. Another thing that we started looking at a couple of years ago, the county commissioners had asked me, because whenever you are doing business under an assumed name, you come to the county clerk's office. We see a lot of people who are excited about opening up their own business, and they go down to the bank and they want to start a checking account with a couple of $100 so they can buy a few little business cards to hand around, and the first thing the bank asks for is their registration. Now, most of them aren't going to spend money to go to a lawyer and become an LLC or this more sophisticated till they've been out there. So what they do is the banks will send them down to us, and they're required then to fill out the form, give us the name of their company. For a $10 fee, they get a 5-year application for the use of that name in our county. And in fact, we put together online a rather very well prepared, what if I get this name in this county and somebody else has this name in another county? And that's one thing we've really done, has expanded our online services. You almost can go online for any type of service to know what the rules and regulations are. Unfortunately, our county has been slow in their firewalls and safety and technology, so we're not able to do some things. But I can tell you, on any given day, we have requests from people who have followed our step-by-step for getting a birth certificate, and they live in Florida, and or the 2 are in Ohio in school and they're coming back to Muskegon to get married. Now, these laws require that we see a photo ID so that they are who they say they are, and even when they're down in Florida, they're able to send us or fax us the picture of their driver's license or all the information we need. They're not able to do it online, and one of the reasons is because, again, the county controls a lot of what we're able to do. We're not separate silos. We're a part of the county, and we have to follow county rules and regulations. When we discovered that we were probably processing 150 business registrations a month in our office, I had contacted MSU Extension and said, how would you like to partner with us to do some entrepreneur workshops? And so for 2 years, Mary Robb from MSU Extension and me, we partnered together, and we had 3 a year. We always look at timing, because I think timing, so no one knows timing better than we do. We know when they're coming in to get birth certificates for 4-year-olds. They're probably getting ready to start preschool. They've got to have ID. We know when they're coming in and they're 9 and 10 years old, they're probably going out for sports. We know when they're getting ready to turn 16, they're probably needing that birth certificate to get their driver's license or get a job. So I think our office is pretty sensitive to what's going on in people's lives. In our entrepreneur workshops, we said we'll do them after school starts and they're back to a routine. We'll do them after the first of the year in January, when the holidays are done, and that type of thing is going on. I'm very pleased that the Secretary of State presented me an award for transparency by putting campaign finance online. It was a big job. We had to work hard because we only had manual records, and we had lots of people that would run for office, and once they lost, they never came back in and terminated their filing. So we had to send letters out to all of these people saying this is on file. In this office, which is so highly regulated by laws, you can't just come in and say, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. You first have to determine what's the law, how can we efficiently and effectively follow the law and accomplish our objective. And so to have the award from the Secretary of State is a high honor, and one that I really appreciate, because she happens to be from the Republican Party and I'm from the Democratic Party. And I say that because we are required to run as partisans, and when you come in to file, you have to file whether you're running as a Democrat or whether you're running as a Republican. But I think that she saw the work and the initiative that I took. We're one of the few counties that has campaign finance online. I knew we were coming up into an election year. I wanted everybody, if 4 years ago county-wides ran, anyone running against them should be able to look online and see what they spent, where their money came from. I knew that townships were up for 4 years. So we went back, I think we went back to 2007 to be sure that any information needed would be online for anybody that
might have 2006.
Oh, even further.
I think you got 2006.
Okay, well, I know I said at least let's go back to 2007,
yeah,
so it would give us that window of 2008. I didn't, I probably could have started with 2009, 10. That wouldn't have been a fair reflection of my commitment to full transparency. A 4-year cycle was absolutely necessary. So that's one that I'm proud of. Another thing is I started the Muskegon County Clerk Spotlight newsletter. And I started that, it's online, we have an index there online. And what that did was give me an opportunity to start to educate and inform people about services. And generally what would happen is if I saw a lot of people calling about this subject or that subject, then in our quarterly newsletter I would put that in there and tell them some of the steps or what to do. And even introducing them, for instance, to our Board of Canvassers. I put out a special edition for elections, and I was proud of it because, number one, that came out for April, May, and June. Deadline for filing was generally May 15th. Full transparency, I wanted everyone to know those laws and the deadline for filing and what they had to file and when they had to file. And so given that situation, that newsletter walks them through it, introduce them to the Board of Canvassers, because if there's a recount, that's who does the recount. If there's a challenge, this is who's going to have that job. And So I think that as far as services we've done, there's certainly more to do, because one of the biggest challenges I had shortly after being elected was to move the county clerk's vitals and elections and genealogy section out of the second floor. We had to find a facility to move to. We had to build a vault to house those records, because the state of Michigan reminds me that these birth records and marriage records and death records are not my records, they're state records, and I just happen to be the custodian and have to follow all their rules and regulations. I'm hopeful with the construction that's going on the first floor right now, that after the November election's over, I'll be able to return the staff and the departments to the first floor. I remind everybody that when we left a facility that was 3,000 square feet. We are returning to 2,200 square feet. So I remind them we are not returning to anything lavish and expensive and big, but we will make it work, and we've been an integral part in the planning and the layout, and we have a very active genealogy organization. The volunteers are in our office every Wednesday from 1 to 4, and they do a lot of research. They help us with a lot of issues, and summer's always really busy because you have relatives who are coming back to Muskegon or never been here, and they're doing research on their grandmother and grandfather, getting a copy of their death certificate or their marriage licenses. And it's so exciting to see the role that we play with genealogy. So I think that pretty much wraps up who I am, why I'm running. I think that I have the credentials that uniquely qualify me to be reelected and continue the service and broaden it for this county and our citizens.
You mentioned transparency in government, and when you first came into office, there were 2 public terminals in the Circuit Court Records Office where anybody could come in and review any case in Muskegon County, whether it's District Court, Circuit Court, or Probate Court. And for some reason, those terminals were taken out, and that information is no longer available on that basis in your office. Why were they taken out?
Well, there were 2 terminals there when I came in, and shortly after I was there, we were having lines of people outside the door waiting for service. And so many times during the course of the day, the general public didn't know how to work those monitors because they were old, they were slow. Our staff would have to get up from their desks and go out and around and bring them up. Even when we put postings on there on how to work them. I had a woman who came to me one day during the lunch hour, and she said, I can only come here during the lunch hour, and she said, I've been waiting for 45 minutes to get on the monitor. And I said, what would you suggest I do? She said, I think you need to have a time limitation. And she said, I said, do you think that 10 minutes would allow you to do what you need to do? And she said, I think it would. I just want to see this, this, and this. So I then imposed a 10-minute requirement. And of course, the staff wasn't happy because their argument was, we don't have time to stand here and sit and look at the clock. My position was that it would afford the general public an opportunity to come in, that they would self-monitor themselves. If it appeared that the 2 monitors were being monopolized by people for much longer times, that certainly they could go around and stand in line. Then later on, it was obvious that we could do better, faster service by putting a second monitor behind for the clerks to look up the information. Now, that doesn't help someone who might have 16 names they're looking up, but generally if someone's coming in with 16 names, they're usually a business or something. But I can assure you that for the general public, they have better, faster, more efficient service with us looking them up than what it was when it was there before.
Okay, well, if you've got the problem of people waiting to use the monitors, that would indicate to me that A, there's a need for it, and it's not just something that sits there and collects dust, that you've got a need for it. There's a lot of people that use it, and if anything, that would tell me, look, instead of 2 monitors, maybe we need 4 monitors instead.
That might have been the case when I first came in, but now that things have changed with how the process is done, that the general feeling is, I mean, I can tell you on any given day when I'm in the Circuit Court Records office, I don't see people lining up to wait for information. They'll step up to the counter, they want to know about this or this. A good example might be someone who needs to get a copy of their divorce papers. In the time before that, they generally had to look on the monitors, find their case number, bring that up to us at the counter. We would search on it. We would then order their file or go in and pull their file, because it's not unusual, especially for women that are 62 going down to file for divorce, to have a copy of their divorce decree showing that they'd been married to this gentleman for 10 years so that that person could file for Social Security on a higher rating. Now the person steps up to the counter and says, I'm Jennifer Smith, and I'd like to have a copy of my divorce record. The person immediately calls it up, and we have 2 people that are usually working both of those monitors. They immediately call it up and they'll say, was your husband's name Mr. So-and-so? Yes. And would your divorce have been such and such a time? Yes. They say, please wait a moment and we'll go and get it. They go back there, they give them the folder, they let them look through the folder to see what they want out of there. Do they want, in some cases, the divorce might be that they're coming in wanting to see that folder to see about child support. The child now is getting ready to graduate from high school. Was the judge's order that the father had to pay for the college of that, or the health care. So I think they're really getting much better service with our staff that are more familiar with the computers. They don't have to look up their case number. 95% of them that come into that office don't have an idea or a clue of what their case number is. They spend a lot of time first trying to figure out and look up their case number. Once they look up the case number, then they'd come up to us. Now they walk straight up there. You seldom see anybody lined up. We have a counter rotation now where 3 people, 4 people of our employees will step right up, take filings, do this, do that. And I think it's much more efficient.
Why not have both? Why not have it set up for the people that are, I'll say, not familiar with the court system that much, to where they come
Sure.
in, they go to the counter and they say, look, I'm here on my divorce case, I'd like to get some information on it. They're novice users of the courts.
Well, we didn't have the space in our office, and that was one reason. And when I say space in our office, one of the things that we did was 2 years ago we moved over the concealed weapons procedure from the vitals department over to the 6th floor. I went to the judge and I said, we need some help because the clerk to this board, especially during the winter when it's raining or snowing or whatever, has to carry all these records over. We thought we would only be there a short time. We've been over there much longer. When we moved them over, I was aware that sometimes we might have 20, 30 people coming in for getting their gun permits, and I had to be aware of that. I also was aware that that process was one that I worked very closely with the sheriff, and it made a closer relationship for us right there with the sheriff by bringing it over there. It also, we work very closely with the prosecutor on gun permits because of the fact that if you are charged with something in another state and they get that notice, then the prosecutor's office is right up there telling us, pull this person in so we can review this and this and this. And I think the way the reorganization of that office, because of the services that needed to be done as we change systems and have been out of the building, have been such. Now I can tell you that certainly when the county clerk's office moves back, there will probably be monitors on the first floor. We never expected to be out this long. I thought we'd be back in a year. But I think we've done well for the situation that we were faced with, in which none of us had any clue that any of this was going to be going on.
Right. The reason I bring it up is there's some people that have a tendency to use the monitors quite frequently, and I look at it from a standpoint of, number one, if somebody's up there and let's say, for instance, they have a dozen cases to look up, it's much easier for them just to go to the computer by themselves without the staff there, keeping the staff free to do other things. They can look up what they need to look up and then leave the office. Instead, now they would have to go to the staff and say, look, I've got like 16 names here and I need to go ahead and take a look at these. And I believe there's some policy that was in place that said we can give you 4 or 6 files at a time. And it's like, we want you to have the information, but not as much as you might want at any particular given date and time.
First of all, I want to share with you that while I'm over circuit court records, I don't get to make decisions for circuit court records. That is a body of the court system, and therefore who sets policy in that office is the chief judge. Now, every year the chief judge adopts local administrative orders that tell me what we can do. It used to be our local administrative order was for no more than 5 files, and then we had them increase it from 5 files to 10 files. So I can tell you that you know, that's why people may think a county clerk is elected and makes all the decisions and can do. I said to my husband at night that I probably have more bosses than anybody else that's an elected. I don't think the treasurer has the bosses I have. I don't think the register of deeds has the bosses I have, the prosecutor, the sheriff, the drain commissioner. But it's the responsibility of the county clerk to work well with all of these bosses. And I think we do a good job. And I would say that 99% of the time, any complaint that's given and we're able to resolve it, we resolve it as quickly as possible. Am I able to resolve that other 1%? No, I can't. Maybe space limitation, you know, maybe other types of issues that we're not able. Do I think we're very efficient and give them the information they need? Absolutely. You know, when they bring in their list and they're looking them up and pulling those files and things like that.
So we're going to get the monitors back when you get the space and you're rearranged on the first floor then?
Well, what I've said is that I'm hopeful that when we return to the county building on the first floor, are you one that used that monitor quite a bit?
Yes.
Okay. Well, have you been up there asking for information? Because I haven't seen you in our office.
Well, I go up there and I ask for information, and sometimes it's a question of, okay, I need to see how many times a particular business may be named as a defendant, and it's easier for me just to go look at the monitor and I can tell from that the status of the case, what type of case it was, how many times they've been listed. And when I go ask staff for that, it's a lot more time consuming for them and for me. So I'm looking at it from an efficiency standpoint.
Well, I certainly apologize if you think it's a lot more time for both of you. At this point, you know, when we feel that what we have working at this time is good, because we want to be always having the files available for everybody, and we'll keep working on your concern.
And most of the time when I come into the office, it's not only me. I always see people on those monitors when they were there, and that's why I'm raising the issue. If it was something where when I walk in there nobody's ever using them and they're collecting dust, that's one thing. But when you have something, some type of function of a public office that's used frequently, then it was something that, okay, that's something we need to keep. We might need to expand on it. We might need to go ahead and set it up so it serves a broader base. But it's something that I've seen attorneys up there using them quite frequently, state police officers using them frequently. So it is something that it was a used function up there.
And I don't know how the monitors got in that office to begin with, because it was my understanding that that was a function of district court, and that district court had put the files up there, or the monitors up there, and that hasn't, you know, we've tried to accommodate as best we could with the other urgent types of issues. And as I said, as we get ready to move back, we keep looking at space and what can happen and what we can do. So I'll certainly make a note of that.
Right. We would definitely appreciate that.
But I think on transparency, there's no one that can match my record.
You've covered most of my questions. Of course, I knew most of them anyways because I've talked with you on quite a number of occasions. Is there any issues on consolidation in your department coming up? I know that's one of the big things that the county itself has been trying to do.
Yeah. There haven't been any issues in the county clerk's office per se. Remember that all of my employees are union employees. Therefore, they come under different classifications. And the circuit court records employees, I came in and discovered that they had a much harder job. It was not a clerk 2 position, not to demean clerk 2 position, but that, and I went to the board and asked them to change their classification to circuit court clerks with a little higher pay, because we sometimes are giving advice to attorneys that are coming in, and certainly there's secretaries that are calling saying, I want to file this, or what do I do about this? And so, and then the other clerks in the other vitals department are clerk 2s. So at this time, there's no discussion about consolidation. I know that there's been talk in the past, not in this county, but in other counties, where the county clerk's office and the registered deeds office might merge, and some have done it, and some have been there long-standing. But the way this county now has the register of deeds over here on South Campus and the county clerk over here in the courthouse, it's not going to be well advised on how you save any money. I think the only one that'll be going crazy, it's like me right now with the vitals and the elections and over here, and circuit court over here, and the board of commissioners over here, 6, 7, 8 times a day running back and forth. And I don't mind it at all, and I've never complained about it. But if that were a 4-year type of responsibility, I think that there'd certainly have to be more chief deputies in these departments, because you wouldn't be able to service all the things. I think the other thing is that most people don't realize the county clerk, for instance, holds all the titles for every vehicle in this county. If it's if there's an accident, it's totaled, if it's purchased new, if it's this. I don't think anybody has a clue of how much responsibility the county clerk has. And I think because of that, the county clerk is well positioned to be separate, especially in this county with so much going on in contracts and things like that.
What's the difference between you and your opponents?
My experience. My experience leadership from having been a county commissioner for 4 years, knowing that you go to the board to get approval, that I may be an elected official, but I don't get to call these shots, and that when I go to the board, that I'm well prepared. I know what needs to be given to them in order to get their approval. And I think that's a big difference. That was a little eye-opener for me about, oh, I'm an elected official, because elected officials, statutorily, the Board of Commissioners cannot interfere with how they run their office except for giving them their funding. And so on a day-to-day basis, the elected official's responsible because the public then elects them or doesn't elect them. But I think certainly my experience of having been a county commissioner for 4 years, when I'm sitting there in those Board of Commissioner meetings and doing those minutes, how much easier it is to understand. A couple of issues was when they voted in the organizational meeting, and they voted by secret ballot for the vice chair, and I had to tell the corporate counsel the law only allows the chair of the board to be elected by secret ballot, and they had to come back and redo the election of Vice Chairman Snyder. It didn't change. I was the chair of the County Board of Commissioners Rules Committee and wrote the rules when I was the commissioner. So I know when I was challenged about whether or not a commissioner could vote. It was a non-controversial vote. It was like 11-0. The county commissioner had asked to change his vote. I ruled that the vote had already been announced. I was challenged by a commissioner who said, I would like corporate counsel to investigate and see, because it's my understanding that Robert's Rules of Order only allows the vote to be final when the chair announces it. And he ruled that way. I came back with my documentation showing that on such and such a day the board had adopted their rules, that their rules supersede Robert's Rules of Order, that they did this, this, and this, and of course, those are things that, again, when you talk about transparency, I know when I'm sitting at that table, having been a county commissioner, having written those rules, having done all these things, that they don't get, and with 5 brand new county commissioners this time, they really needed a strong, experienced person sitting there as the clerk to the board.
What other things would you like to see available online and more transparent?
Well, there's lots of things that probably need to be online. I think that the Board of Commissioners are now moving in a direction where they're going to make all the information available on their front page website of their meetings, when they are, where they are, and things like that for the general public. I think that certainly needs to be there. The whole jail study. Now, we hear a lot about the jail subcommittee, but what you don't hear about is that there's 2 additional subcommittees that I remind them that it's as important as the jail, and it's electeds and commissioners and department heads, and that is, one is education and communications. And one of the things that we're doing in our subcommittee is looking at how to help people when they get there know where they're going. We're going to have in the atrium public information desk that's long overdue because of the frustration of people when they get there. They don't even know what to do when they get to the building. I think that the county has done a lot and has spent a lot of money in doing the infrastructure on firewalls and things like that. So we'll see, because until all those things are in place, it's hard to say what's on my wish list, because I have to always be realistic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming today. We appreciate the time you took out of your day to give us the information you gave us. You definitely informed us quite well about what the county clerk does, all the responsibilities of the office, and good luck to you in the primary.
Thank you. I'd appreciate your support.